Dr. Mark Ingle, regarding Terminus House and BBC director, etc., and his background in him being an investor, what's your problem with that?
Well, I think let's actually go through what was revealed by The Guardian yesterday. So a friend of senior Tories at the time that planning rules for converting office blocks into accommodation were scrapped is a senior partner of, and in fact the chair of the investment committee of a company that lent money to Carridon, and Carridon made an awful lot of money at taxpayers' expense from studio flats that measure only 3.5 meters by 5 meters, so small that we hear stories of babies and toddlers not learning to walk because they don't have the space to do so. He made a fortune from, or his company made a fortune from that loan. He then donates £400,000 to the Conservative Party, who made the rules that allowed him to make the money. They then offer him a very nice job as chair of the BBC. And meanwhile, that £400,000 donation goes into the coffers of the Conservative Party, who will use it as part of the funds for electioneering. So every time a leaflet drops through the door in Harlow from the Conservative Party, some, probably a very small proportion, but some of that will have come from the £400,000 donation given by a man who can afford to do that because he's made so much money from the misery of Terminus House. Now, those things may not be linked. They may be, completely separate events, one thing not leading to the other. But, sometimes when something smells rotten, it is rotten.
So you've had a long conversation, dialogue online and offline with the Harlow Conservatives. Do you feel they've now gone silent on this, or do you think they have questions to answer?
Well, I think they do. Look, Robert Halfon described, and I've written it down to get it right. Robert Halfon described Terminus House as a modern day ghetto for the vulnerable. And yet the party that he represents have profited or taken money from the man who profited from these modern day ghettos for the vulnerable. So the question that they must be answering is, are they prepared to give back that £400,000 because they should never have taken it in the first place? They can't deny they don't know the source of it. This is £400,000 from a man who has profited from creating misery and harm to Harlow. And they should be joining me in asking the Conservatives to show a bit of moral background and backbone and give the money back.
But do you feel any of this, okay, rights or wrongs, do you feel any of this is going to solve the problem of Terminus House?
Well, look, it's not enough. It's not enough just to say Terminus House is an abomination. It is. You've got to do whatever you possibly can to try and end that kind of human warehousing. And exposing the source of the money, I hope, will shame people into not providing Carridon loans for future developments. But Michael, and I'm sure your readers know as well, that I've spent the best part of 2 years going to visit the leaders of councils across the southeast, and these are leaders of Conservative, Labour and Liberal Democrat controlled councils, to try and persuade them to stop using Terminus House for temporary accommodation. And I know it's difficult for them because the local housing allowance cap has made it almost impossible for some of these councils to find accommodation within their own borders. But I've had some success. We've probably now got a dozen councils of all colours that, as a result of my meetings with them and my talking to them about the appalling conditions in Terminus House, who have said, we will no longer use it. And it is my hope that I can persuade every council to withdraw from Terminus House.
Because one of the things about Terminus, last night you voted through, the part of the £50 million package to regenerate the town centre. And you mentioned, one of the things mentioned was things like even compulsory purchase orders. You're going to regenerate that with your partners all the way across the whole town centre. There's stuff going on right now and stuff going to the future. But could you be possibly left with this whole town centre regenerated in a modern 21st century way, and Terminus House still standing there, hovering over the whole regeneration agenda, casting a dark shadow over the regeneration agenda?
It would be my fervent hope that that would not be the case, and I will do everything in my power to stop it being the case. But let's be clear, the Conservative government could end this at a stroke. They could say, and apply it retrospectively, all office block conversions must meet decent space standards. And if they don't, then taxpayer money in the form of housing benefits shouldn't be paid to them.
Okay. So is that your message to Robert Halfon to take back to the House of Commons?
Well, I have two messages. First of all, Robert, you must start to campaign, or you must start to argue within your own party that the £400,000 that you took, that the Conservatives took, is given back. It's tainted money. You shouldn't have it. And secondly, you should be doing more than just describing the conditions in Terminus House as abominable. You're right, but you need to be talking to the government departments who view permitted development as a huge success and saying, this is wrong. Look, Michael, a studio flat, 3.5 metres by 5 metres in Terminus House with no garden, no play facilities, the taxpayer is being charged over £700 a month for that. Harlow Council can provide a 2-bedroom house with a garden, and the average rent for that is £418, almost half. Carridon are profiteering at the expense of the housing crisis. The government is in a position to stop this. The government must take action.